Most people assume they know how God provides. Clean vessels, clear signs, familiar forms. But there is a moment buried inside one of the oldest stories in biblical history that quietly dismantles that assumption, and almost no one talks about it. A creature marked as impure, rejected by the law, associated with desolation and death, and yet chosen, specifically, deliberately, to carry provision to a prophet the world had forgotten. What does it mean when the sacred moves through something the religious would turn away from? What does it reveal about the nature of divine supply, and about how many signs might already be passing by, unrecognized, simply because they don't look the way anyone expected? There are moments buried inside biblical history that most people read past without blinking. Verses that seem simple, details that feel like background. But sometimes, hidden inside what looks like a minor detail, there's something that changes the entire weight of the story. This is one of those moments. A creature appears briefly, almost silently, in one of the most dramatic seasons ancient Israel ever faced. And almost no one stops to ask why that creature, why that bird, something considered unclean, something associated not with life, but with what comes after life ends. It shouldn't have been part of this story at all, and yet it was there. That's the part that doesn't let go, because nothing in this story happened by accident. Every element, every detail, every presence was placed with intention. The creature wasn't a coincidence of nature wandering through the scene. It was sent, and that single word, sent, carries a weight most people never fully sit with. Because if something considered impure, something the law itself labeled unclean, was chosen to carry provision, then maybe the way divine supply moves through the world looks nothing like what anyone expected. Maybe it never did. The question isn't just why that bird. The question is what that choice reveals about the nature of provision itself. His name was Elijah, a prophet, a man who had stood before kings and spoken words that shook thrones. But in this moment, none of that mattered. He was alone, hidden near a stream called Cherith, east of the Jordan, a place most people had never heard of and would never visit. No city, no community, no human voice to break the silence. He had been told to go there, and he went, cut off from everything familiar, from every source of support he had ever known. Just a man, a stream, and the kind of stillness that doesn't feel peaceful. It feels like waiting for something that hasn't arrived yet. And somewhere beyond the horizon, the land was already beginning to change. The drought had already begun. Not the kind that arrives quietly and leaves quickly. The kind that settles in. That spreads. That turns green things gray and gray things to dust. Across ancient Israel, the sky stayed closed. Rivers shrank. Wells ran shallow. The kind of silence that a dying land produces. No rain, no wind carrying moisture, just heat and the slow sound of things withering. Survival was no longer something people took for granted. It had become a daily calculation. And out there, hidden beside a stream that would itself one day stop flowing, a man sat waiting, with no plan, no backup, no visible way forward. Only the word that had brought him there and whatever that word had promised to send, and then there was the bird, the raven. In the ancient world, it wasn't a symbol of mystery or poetic darkness. It was something far more specific. Under Mosaic law, it was listed among the unclean, an animal a devout Israelite would not touch, would not eat, would not welcome. It was the creature found circling over battlefields, perched near the dead, associated not with provision, but with desolation, with the aftermath of things that had already been lost. In biblical symbolism, it occupied a world apart from purity, apart from the sacred. It belonged to the margins, to the places people avoided, and yet, somewhere in the wilderness, wings were already moving. Something was already in the air, something that had no business being part of this story. It's recorded in the first book of Kings, chapter 17. The words are direct, almost uncomfortably simple for what they describe. God speaks, and the ravens are commanded, not suggested, not nudged by instinct or coincidence, commanded, the same word used for waters and winds and kings. And what were they commanded to do? To bring bread, to bring meat, morning and evening, to a single man hiding beside a stream in the middle of a drought-stricken land. The text doesn't pause to explain it, doesn't offer a defense or a theological footnote. It simply states what happened, as if the strangeness of it was never meant to be explained away. As if the strangeness was the point. And then, something appeared on the horizon. First, just movement, distant. A dark shape against a pale sky, easy to dismiss, easy to ignore. But it kept coming, wings cutting through the heavy air of a land that had forgotten what rain felt like. And then another. The sound before the sight, that low, unmistakable presence of something large and dark descending. Not circling, not drifting. Moving with direction, with purpose, toward a man who had nothing in a place that offered nothing, during a season when everything was running out. The bird that belonged to desolation had crossed into a place of waiting, and it was carrying something, the creature associated with death, arriving with the opposite of it. And it would not come just once, it came back. Morning, then evening, then morning again. The same wings, the same dark shape breaking the silence of a sky that refused to give rain. And each time, provision, bread, meat, carried in the beak of a creature the law said not to touch, delivered to a man the world had no way of reaching. Day after day, in a place where survival should have been impossible, the pattern held. Not once, not twice, again and again, with a consistency that had nothing to do with nature and everything to do with something far beyond it. The stream was still flowing, the man was still alive, and the bird that had no reason to return kept returning. Which raises something that the text never quite answers directly. Why a raven? That question sits at the center of this story like a stone no one wants to turn over. Because it wasn't a dove, the bird that carried hope back to Noah. It wasn't an eagle, the image of strength and divine elevation woven through the Psalms. It was the one creature most associated with impurity, with the margins, with the places the faithful were told to avoid. And yet it was chosen, deliberately, specifically. In a world built on careful distinctions between clean and unclean, sacred and profane, the choice wasn't careless. It couldn't have been. Every detail in these Old Testament stories carries weight. Every element was placed with intention. So the question isn't whether the choice meant something. The question is what it was meant to reveal. And slowly, the shape of something larger begins to emerge. Because this wasn't the first time in biblical history that provision arrived through an unexpected vessel. It wouldn't be the last. But something about this moment, a raven of all things crossing the boundary between unclean and sacred, seems to crack open a different kind of understanding. That divine supply doesn't wait for the right packaging, doesn't require a clean vessel, a familiar face, an acceptable form. It moves through what is available, through what is willing, through what most people would walk past without a second glance. The raven didn't become holy by carrying bread, but the bread it carried was real, and the man it fed survived. Which leaves one final question hanging in the air. How many times has provision already arrived and been missed? Not because it wasn't there, but because it came in the wrong shape, through the wrong source, wearing the wrong appearance. The raven didn't announce itself. It didn't arrive with the sound of something sacred or the look of something approved. It simply came, again and again, quietly faithful in a season of absolute silence. And if a creature marked as unclean could carry something that kept a prophet alive through one of the darkest seasons in ancient Israel's history, then perhaps the real question isn't about ravens at all. Perhaps it's about every unexpected form that has ever appeared at the edge of someone's wilderness, and whether anyone was watching closely enough to recognize what it was carrying. There it is, a raven, unclean, unwanted, unexpected, crossing the silence of a dying land to feed a prophet no one else could reach. Not once, every single day. In a season when everything was running out, provision came through the last source anyone would have chosen. And that detail has been sitting inside these Old Testament stories for thousands of years, waiting for someone to stop and really look at it. So here's what to sit with. What if the signs you've been waiting for have already been arriving, just not in the form you expected? What does this story stir in you? Drop it in the comments because these conversations matter. And if stories like this one move something in you, subscribe and turn on notifications. There's so much more buried inside biblical history that most people have never been shown.